I hope you can hear me now. Can you? Give me a smoke signal if you can hear me. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, yeah. Grace, I hope that hand is a confirmation that you can hear me. All right, yes. Sawa. Sorry about that. So this is the reason why I'm passionate about journeying with teens and preteens. It's because when I was a teenager, this was me. It was in 1999. I was in Form 3. So I was going to Form 4 the following year. And these were the only boys I was allowed to hang out legally because they are my cousins. So this is Wanjere, Morage, and Wanjere. Like they are relatives. And then, of course, now there is Paps. And I remember during this time, I was depressed. And I remember the end of this year, that was on December 27th, 1999. I was actually contemplating suicide that night. I mean, I had really been a failure in terms of my grades. I just didn't have anything together. I was struggling with my friendships in school. I used to feel so rejected. I used to feel so timid. I remember that third term of Form 3, I had a D-, D for dog. You know, like it was just a bad space. And I remember my parents were just like, I think, where hakuna hope, especially my dad. My dad was so shattered and he was really feeling ashamed of me. So he was like, go and talk to your auntie. You know, kitambo, when you misbehave, you used to be sent to another ushago to have someone else talk to you. Our parents used to feel like it's not their responsibility. So I was sent away. And I remember being with my auntie. Her children had also traveled and I was just there alone that night. And I was like, you know what? It's never that serious. Seems like I was just not cut out for this. And of course, that night, my auntie has a well outside there. So I was like, I'll go and throw myself in and just end this misery. I was actually really feeling a lot of agony that night. And I was just feeling like there'll never be any sunrise for me. And I remember just walking over to that borehole and then I stood there and then I think I freaked out. I was like, sasa nikianguka hapo watanitoaje? I mean, as if it really mattered when you're dead. And I remember going back to the house. First of all, I stayed there for quite a while. I could just feel like I was really numb. And then I went back to the house. Of course, my auntie was in a different separate bedroom that was a bit far. And I really broke down. I sobbed. I cried, I wailed. I was just like, God help me. I think I just found myself repeating that so many times. God help me, God help me, God help me. I was just feeling like, you know, my life is so useless. And I remember, of course, those emotional prayers that teenagers and of course people who are approaching exams love doing. And I was like, Lord, if you just give me a C+, I'll serve you for the rest of my life. I was so non-ambitious because honestly, I was genuinely struggling with my grades. There was no miracle about it. And I remember that night becoming a turnaround for my life. Like after sobbing, I remember I slept. Like I think I just sobbed for probably more than an hour. And then I slept. And then when I woke up in the morning, there was so much peace in my life. There was so much peace. It's like God had just lifted off a burden on me. And I remember from that time when I went back to school, first of all, I was like, by the way, say I became a Christian. I used to be those blacklisted people by the CU. So they were like, yapana, we have to pray for you again. Tumeokoka. No, this doesn't work that way. Nani alikuombea? Nobody. So they prayed for me and I became properly born again according to the CU standards. And then from that time, I got amazing friend. I remember Grace Kerigo. She was called Grace Kerigo Nderito. She used to wake up. She's like, Paps, tukasome. By then I used to be called Papi when I was in high school. Papi, amka tunde tukasome. Papi, amka, like, let's go for CU. Let's go for, Papi, let's go for games. I started even becoming a more compliant child. I think I was just a rebel when I was in high school, besides all that crisis. And honestly, I remember leaving high school. First of all, it was a miracle that I got a C+. I think my parents were so shocked. I got a C+. And then the other thing that happened during that year, like my life really changed. I felt like I started focusing more. I just became a proper person. And then the following year, of course, I did my exam. That was now in 2000. And by the grace of God, I after passing well, and then now high school, I actually went more into serving and just wanting to really be there for other people. And one of the things that happened probably during that season, it's when I went to college, I was like, by the way, who is usually there for teenagers? Like who journeys with them? Who feels their pain? Like the way I used to feel like in high school, there was no one for me. And during that time, that is when I started having this burden to just journey with children. And I'm going to share more about that. And what this translated to in terms of my personal misery is I started going to schools. Of course, I got linkages with organizations that were working with children and just doing discipleship in schools. And so I started going along. This was in 2010, so that is about 13 years ago. And this is in Kanjiro. Girls used to go and just talk to the girls, lead them on reflections, take them through counseling, do Q&A to just answer questions. And by then I was just a discipler. Like in 2010, I just finished my degree. I went to campus in 2007 to do psychology. And so by this time I was feeling like I'm a bit knowledgeable, I'm a bit skillful. And we went to so many girls' school by then. And this was on 26th May 2010. It was at 5:39 Seleto to Mamaliza. And then these girls were escorting us, some of them are CU officials, and this is the patron. And then later, this is now later after the program rolled out. Remember, the program that we did was integrated. So there were sessions for parents and then sessions for teachers. And then we'll also have a session with the students. So like I'll go to a school, do 3 sessions with the kids, and then 1 with the teachers and 1 with the parents. And then I remember in one school where we had invited parents to a forum, there were 61 parents and only 1 was a dad. There were actually 62 and only 1 was a dad. The others were moms, grandmas, they were aunties, they were nannies, like those were the people who were coming to represent children. And I remember going back home and I was like, so God, where are the dads? Where are they? Who is showing up for these kids, besides these moms and aunties? And of course, some of the moms, like I would ask one of the grandmothers, so where is your daughter? Is like Alienda, Qatar, or probably Alienda, not Dubai, there's another country there, just in the Gulf. Like she went there to work, so that she can be able to help us out here. And I was like, wow, this is so sad. And I remember going back home and I was like, so God, what's happening? And the scripture that came to mind was Proverbs, that scripture that says, a wise woman built her own house with her own hands, and a foolish woman tears down her own house with her own hands. And that is how Woman Arise was born. Oh, Abu Dhabi. Yeah, by the Abu Dhabi is also legit. I don't know, there's another Kashot name. Kashot name, like it has, I think, around 5, probably 5 alphabets. And so this was in 2007, November. I remember actually this Woman Arise launch, but then the organization we were running is called Balm in Gilead. And of course, you'll hear about it, especially the ones who are interested to participate in social justice and process to impact communities. And Woman Arise was born on this day to just inspire moms and of course, women to just lead change. How can you come alongside your children? It doesn't matter whether probably she's single mom, or maybe she's heartbroken, or maybe she's just being in an indifferent place, and probably she doesn't have self-awareness. How can she step up and just show up for herself and her children? Right now we are running a platform called Get Your Ball Back, where many women are. I think right now we are around 912, women who just show up, of course, really hoping that everyone is doing the assignments and everything. And then when you think about Woman Arise, it has also been a lot of transformation stories. I remember women who will come, they're probably battling even depression, maybe they're seeing a psychiatrist, and then with time they're able to just pick themselves up. And it's because when this woman is in that state, she's not able to show up for her children, she's not able to love on them, and she's not able to even sometimes take care of herself, and so by extension she's not able to take care of her children in a healthy way. And that is the story of Woman Arise. And then the third part of the story is Leading Change, which is a program that now we started running to schools. This was me and Mary Mogo. Mary Mogo was working for World Vision, so we had partnered with her, and then we went to State House Girls to train all the teachers, all the people who work with kids. And we did this in quite a number of schools. I remember one school we trained even the soldier and the cooks, because we were like, there's some children who will come and the way they are being dropped at the gate, there's something the soldier will notice about, something is not right with this child. They will just see the dynamics that they have with their parents. And then the cook, sometimes they can see the demeanor of a child. When children are in class, when a teacher comes in, they can really act up. In a way, they look like they have it together. But there are other spaces where other people, if they see themselves as mentors, they're able to show up in a helpful way. And so we were giving certificates to them after the training. And so Leading Change is a program now for mentors, people who work with children in schools, in churches. Like, we'll be engaging them even after this book launch of Leading Generations. We'll really want to get that material out to schools, to churches, to organizations. Like today we were attending function where they were launching a report on the open generation, just talking about the open generation in terms of our children are so open to many things, especially they're talking about the Gen Z. They are so open to many things, including even religion. They are open to even try Hinduism. They want to try Guru, like they want to try everything, because they're just like, put everything on the table, I'll choose what I want. They're also open to try probably different careers, different things. And so that open generation is actually a dynamic that we want to reach out to. And guess what? The Gen Zs are 2 billion in the world. I mean, that was really mind-blowing. So today that report was being launched. And of course, World Vision was there, and there was Biblica, and then there was also Alpha, which my husband is very passionate, and they'll be going to the UK next week. to just probably learn more and get equipped more on how to disciple children and to journey with them, and of course adults as well. And so Leading Change is that story, and we launched Leading Change in 2018. Yeah, and so a lot of things are also going to happen around this. And so Leading Generations journey, how has it been? Started in 2004, and I remember Jeff Masharia here me today. I was like, what a coincidence. And Jeff Masharia was in a children's home. He was a 12-year-old boy in a children's home called Stars for Jesus. It was in Jadaine, for those who know Kiambu a bit. And I remember we used to go and do a lot of charity work there. And then, that day, the patron of the Christian Union was like, by the way, we need to assign you children that you can mentor so that you journey with them, you love on them, you check on them. And so Jeff Masharia was assigned to me. And I remember even when he went to Balkan High School, Balkan High School used to be where Four Ways Junction is right now, but then it was a school. That is where he went to high school. And I remember just being with Jeff Masharia. I would go there. I was a very broke young person. By then, probably I was around 2021. I will buy these scones, these 6 buns, super. I will go to Kuala and buy them, and then I'll just go and visit them. I think I used to spend like 30 bob, and that is the snack budget. We'll just sit there. I will ask them questions about themselves, about school. I didn't know how impactful that simple conversation was. And fast track, 10 years later, in 2014, 8 years later, that was in 2012, when we were getting married on 3rd November 2012, guess who was a guest of honor in our pre-wedding? It was Jeff. Jeff came and he gave us a whole 10K. He was a groomsman in our wedding. And he was like, guys, you guys don't have worry. He actually paid upfront, like a Lilipas Jui. The wedding was in November. I think by around August, he had already paid. And I looked at him, I was like, wow, this is such a miracle. And so much grace of God to just be visible in that way. And then 2006, there was Kanjero Girls, Victorian Girls. Of course, I've shown you a photo, St. Tito Girls. These were the schools I was journeying with and consistently going back to just check on the girls. And I think it just hit me, I think 2 years ago, like these girls are wives. They've grown up, they're moms. 2006 is such a while ago. And then 2013, that is when I quit my job, and then I went into research and designing programs for teenagers. And so they were well thought out, they were professional programs, and they were really, really impactful. That is the time that we rolled out this program that had 3 sessions for children, 1 for mentors and 1 for parents. And then 2015, we rolled out to 5 schools. That was the integrated approach that I've mentioned. 2016, Woman Arise was launched. 2018, Leading Change training and status girls happened. That is where we spearheaded it. And then 2020, that is when during COVID, when children were home, we started facing Giants virtual coaching, and it was amazing. I think for a while I was frozen and stuck because all the programs that I used to do were physical. And then, of course, redesigning the programs, I had a very helpful friend who was like, by the way, if you want to engage children or even people on screen, you need to make your programs creative, use graphics, use photos, tell stories. And of course, that model was powerful. And so we were able to coach so many children during COVID and just journeying with them through that crisis. And then 2023, which is this year, we have launched Facing Giants Masterclass, where we take children through a whole year of coaching. And this is targeting especially preteens because they are home, they're available, they have time. And so I've just been journeying with right now they're around 7. They're the ones that I journey with, and just probably take them through workbooks. Like we have a workbook for every it's like a mini seasons. So they'll do 10 seasons tackling different areas. They will come to purpose clarity, emotional wellness, social confidence, academic, money. Like we are going into all directions so that they are just coming out of this very holistic. And then the research-based coaching. Like I said, when in 2015 and 2016, we engaged 5 schools and 3 churches. That is why we're running this program continuously. So whatever content probably taking the preteens through right now, it's something that probably has been researched for the past 8 years, 7 years, and 37 children. These were pupils, the ones that were in primary school. We were taking them through this conversation of what is your giant? Write down on a piece of paper 3 things that you feel if these ones are dealt with, you'll be home and dry. And I would really encourage you to do this with your children. Just get them to really share and to just have this as a conversation starter in terms of what is your giant, what is the most difficult thing going on in your life. I remember one mom who was saying she used some of these conversations on her kids. They really opened up in an amazing way, in a way that it really healed their relationships, even in places that probably there were misunderstandings. And then 70% of the feedback that the children shared on the research we did on this 637, they were actually challenges from home. And so children will share, probably it's a dynamic of their family, it's a dynamic of sibling rivalry, it's a dynamic of probably they're feeling like they are lonely, they are alone. Some of them probably are feeling like they're being bullied by house helps. Like it was just a lot of feedback coming from home. And then 20% were also challenges within themselves. Like I lie, I'm lazy, like just something about me. In a way, it's nobody's fault. And of course, we categorize this feedback in 6 categories. And so there was, first of all, academic challenges that children go through. So there was academic challenges of bad grades, difficult subjects. I feel like a failure. I fear exams. I struggle to focus. Going to school, good performance, harsh teachers, homework and assignments are just staggering. I have a lot of ignorance on things that I don't like. I just switch them off. Poor concentration in class, poor performance and low grades, rebellion toward teachers, unfinished assignments. Teachers are discriminating. So one of them gave an example. Self-discipline. I'm also very slow in my assignment and probably classwork, and I also keep on forgetting. Yeah, so those are some of the academic challenges children shared. And then on the emotional challenges, they said anger, discouragement, stress, fear, hopelessness, bad temper, jealousy, sexual temptations, negative emotions, misbehaviors, negative thoughts, shyness, indiscipline, and of course, pressure and anxiety. And then, of course, lack of self-control, self-hatred, tired and laziness. So these are some of the emotional challenges they felt they're battling with. And then on identity challenges, of course, there was adolescent challenges with no transition support. So some of the children, especially the ones who are now going to 13, 14, were feeling like there's nobody talking me through these things, like my boobs are just popping. Nobody has said anything. Or my period I've started, nobody's saying anything. Or maybe I'm just feeling like my voice has broken. I'm feeling scared. There is no reassurance. And then afraid of being myself. I'm just not showing up as myself. Some of them also are struggling with bad behavior. So they're just feeling like they have bad habits, they have a bad attitude. Some of them was drug abuse. We categorize it in the identity challenges because it was related. Like they were just saying, because I want to look cool, I want to discover myself. Like there was all that vibe. And then, of course, emotional growth, health challenges, making bad decisions and mistakes. Of course, some of them were feeling like menstruation. I remember I've had conversations with several girls who turn to teenagehood and they really hate their periods. They really hate their periods. They're like, I wish I was a boy and I didn't have to struggle with this. And so this is a reality. Like, don't just assume your child is tackling it well because maybe for you it's no big deal. Just check in with them. And then, of course, stealing, secretiveness, time wastage, I'm unsure of my choices, violence towards others, and vulgar language. And then home challenges that they shared, I've said this was 70% concentration at home, family conflict, sibling hatred and fights, family problems. Probably they're just feeling like we have so many struggles. Disabled parents is also a challenge for some children. And the other thing is parents opposing my dreams. No, I've skipped a line. House helps also came up, and then lack of initiative. Maybe they don't sawajitumangi, like they just sit there and excuse me, they hope for the best. And then poverty at home, lies, parents opposing my dreams. Pressure to perform was also featuring prominently. And then there was also the promiscuous parents, and then there's respecting parents and elders. Some of them are struggling with that. And there's sex and pornography, like as young as an 8-year-old actually confessed that they're already exposed to pornography and sex. And then there was sexual abuse by a boy at home. We really tried to follow up on this child. It was in a school in Eastlands. Yeah, we were not successful. Like I think she was not totally willing to own up on this. And then sick parents, single mom parent, like sometimes children struggle with that much as it is not our fault. I hope you watched the video that I sent today. Yeah, I'll keep on sending more snippets tomorrow, the other day, just small bits. And then stressful friends and relatives, lack of time. They feel like there's too much work at home and school, especially children that have still house chores when they get home and they have a bulk of homework. Time to relax and study, too much sleep. The children who are just sleepyheads, they struggle to wake up, and then of course waking up late. They just feel like they are out of breath when they wake up. Category number 5 was peer pressure challenges. So they were like, I have abusive friends, attraction to the opposite sex. There was actually an 9-year-old who wrote a paper and he was like, yeah, I'm interested in Nani, like she said, her name probably, I'm interested in Mary, please talk to her to accept me. That was a 9-year-old in one of the schools. Yeah, and of course, there's also bad friends, beautiful girls. Can you imagine? Like even this beautiful girl was a boy in class 4. And then conflict with friends, discouragement from friends, distraction by other pupils, boys are disturbing me, drugs in my neighborhood. It was also very sad. It was in Eastlands as well. Getting along with other pupils at school, love feelings, rejection by other pupils, and of course, troublesome and mischievous friends. And this can really make even going to school so difficult. And of course, with time, it affects their grades. And so all these places are valid. And of course, number 6 was technology challenges. The children who are feeling like they're addicted to some programs, they're watching bad movies and bad cartoons, they're watching bad things. There's actually one child who was also in Eastlands. It was like my tablet and my laptop. So I was like, this is a child who is over-equipped. Probably they are overwhelmed because of too much technology is available. And I can imagine probably beside the tablet and the laptop, there's also a screen. This family must have a big TV as well. And then excessive gaming, the children who are addicted to gaming. I remember during COVID, I was actually with a boy who had a strained wrist. Like he was actually coming for therapy because he's addicted to gaming, can't think of anything else. And he's even telling his mom, me, I don't want school. I just know I want to do gaming. So allow me to do my thing right now. And he was in an international school. So it was very hard working for the mother. And then spending too much time on TV. That was also a challenge that was coming. And I don't know whether you've had anything that probably sounds familiar, whether it's your child or another child somewhere. And what is the big deal? It's because all these issues that have been raised by these children represent the struggles of many kids in our own homes, in our schools, in our churches, in our neighborhoods, in our nation, and globally. And of course, a broken child, if all these issues are not addressed, they potentially become a broken adult, and most probably they end up raising another broken child. Like when you look at some of us, we're just feeling like I'm really stuck on my childhood because probably my parents didn't show up in a way that was affirming, that was helpful, that was nurturing, that was less hurtful, that was less dysfunction, less abusive. And of course, this cycle can keep on going on for generations. If there's lack of self-awareness, self-regulation in terms of you controlling yourself, self-awareness, you understanding the situation, and self-drive in terms of taking actions to help your child, to help yourself as well. Because sometimes we are struggling in our parenting because we're struggling in parenting because we are struggling within ourselves. And so for you to also get help so that you're able to show up for your child in a functional way. And then there's also this research, the global trends research that I've covered in the Leading Generation book, Leading Generations, and this is happening globally, and right now it is rapidly growing in Kenya. And so these are some of the things that will be covered in the book. Of course, I'll take you guys through many webinars, even beyond the book launch. Yeah, and it will really, really be insightful to just look at these things in terms of we are a global village. Some of these things we may not be very privy to, but I want you to know that they are very active in the Kenyan community. So the hookup culture is where children will just meet, have casual sex. They don't even know the person they had sex with, and then they just go. Hookup culture, it's like friendship with benefits. We just here, let's do our thing. I don't love you. I don't even like you maybe, but probably you are good in this thing. And it's really happening. I've had children who are caught up in this. Dating and sex is also happening in a way children are not feeling like there's big deal to date even in primary school. That is a big concern. And then premarital sex, teenage pregnancy is also becoming a big deal. Like right now, there's an organization I work with that empowers women just journeys with moms who are teens. And probably you guys will get to participate in that mission in future. We'll probably go there together. And then there's sexual abuse. It's really, 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 really rampant. I've also met a child who is struggling with homosexuality. She's a lesbian, and it's because she was sexually abused from when she was 4, and then later when she was 8, and then when she was 11, and then she's like, I hate men, I'll just go for the girls. And in every relationship that she's in, she has to be the guy. So you can see the relationship. And then, of course, pornography addiction is a big deal in this generation. Children are being exposed to pornography as early as 7. Yeah, like I think yesterday there was also another incidence of that. Homosexuality has been legalized in Kenya, so we know this is coming. And of course, we are really praying that God will still keep on upholding our children. Online and gaming addiction. This is also becoming a hit with the PS2s that are full in our house and all the other things. And how do we create a regulation in this space? And then, of course, also violent homes and neighborhoods. It's also a reality, especially because sometimes we live where we can afford, And so sometimes those neighborhoods can have a dynamic that is not friendly and helpful for our children. And then suicide thoughts and attempts. There are so many children who admit they're struggling within this space, especially when we go to schools, when we are having conferences and just big events for children, you can really, really pick this. Bullying and cyberbullying, especially when they are online, they are trolled, they post something, someone shames them, and it becomes a big deal. They just come melting down and they don't even know that person, but it really affects them. And bullying, of course, in schools, it's a real hit and it's a big deal. And then substance and drug abuse is also happening in terms of global trends and now hitting home. I remember some teenagers that I was journeying with around 7 years ago. And I remember one of them would actually admit, he started eating those weed cookies, and he would even walk because he didn't have enough money. I think one cookie was 50 bob. And so he would walk up to Juja from Roiro to go and get those cookies because there was a specific person supplying them there. And then they will take the cookies, like they will go and buy those cookies innocently. Their parents don't even know that your child is high on cookies. Unajua tu unakuta akikula biscuit, you're just like, okay, it's fine. Yeah, teenagers love snacking. And then later you can see his behavioral change and everything. And it was a very ugly situation because it ended up now he's eating those sweet cookies with a certain girl. They end up getting pregnant because they were also in a relationship, and then they end up getting twins. And then both of them were 16. Like, it was such a messy situation, even for their families. And then the other thing is eating disorders. Girls especially are really struggling with this. I've met girls who are struggling with anorexia, bulimia. They're struggling with binge eating. They're very unhappy with their bodies and how they probably feel about themselves. And then there's also watching violent content. Like, our children are really exposed, even playing violent games. And sometimes we feel like it's just a game. No, it's not just a game. Some of these things are very psychologically well thought out. And that is why sometimes children are aggressive, and all these things in terms of now the presentation in the book. Let me just first of all finish. Let me not go ahead of myself. And then there's parents' challenges. Like, sometimes when me and James are going through challenges, to just be aware that our children are affected by it. And sometimes we may be feeling like they're too young or it's none of their business, but they're really sucking into the negative energy. And that is why it's important we just get help. Just go and get help as a couple. Just also talk to your children and find out what's happening. Like, for example, if they walk into you, like something like, there's a time me and James had a situation, and I think we really had a meltdown in front of Crystal, and we were dropping her to school. And so we are arguing and we can't stop. And then she was very terrified when she got off the car. She didn't talk, she didn't say anything. And of course, I knew something had happened and something was not right. And so, of course, later, not even the same day, probably the following week, I was like, Mommy, by the last week, something happened. How do you feel about it? And it had really affected her, because she was like, my best friend has two dads, because the mom left her original dad, got married to another, and I keep on fearing like you guys probably will break up. And it was a concern. We had to go for therapy as well, and even for her to get help. And then, of course, there's the other thing of family disruptions. And by the way, that was not the only incidents. We'd had incidences in our marriage that we were concerned about. Probably how we were showing up and the conversations we were having, or just like, by the way, we are also abusing our child in this process. And so it's important to get help if you're feeling like it's not going away, you're not resolving it. Family disruptions, just because we move, there are children who really struggle with moving towns, moving countries, moving cities, moving schools. And sometimes these are inevitable situations in life. And those family disruptions, sometimes also the fact that dad is away for a while, or mom is away, or probably there are so many transitions, we have to go and live with someone else. We should never assume that children are just fine. And so every family disruption should be approached like in terms of preempting first, just explain this is a transition that will come. How can we support you? And for example, if it happens abruptly, can we check in? And we're like, by the way, I can see nowadays you're uncomfortable or you're unhappy. What can we do to support you? There's also peer pressure. It's real. This one, I don't even need to go anywhere with it. And sibling rivalry, just the fact that sometimes we keep on thinking our children will outgrow whatever is happening. And honestly, when you look at the situation of Tuskys supermarket, that is one of the biggest chains after Nakumat. I mean, we've even forgotten Nakumat, but Tuskys was the next big hit, and it has gone down because of sibling rivalry that was never resolved. And that is how much sibling rivalry that comes into adulthood can be destructive to our children. And this is a place, if you're feeling concerned about how your children relate, please don't ignore. And then academic skills and competence, it's a big deal, especially for the children who are in 844. We're just like, you need to keep on working on your grades. We need you to go to campus. And of course, sometimes it's a lot of pressure, especially because have we understood the dynamic of our child's capacity and all that? And then, of course, deformity and illnesses, whether it's on them or on people who are close to them. Sometimes we have children or they have siblings who have special needs. Just keep on talking, just keep on checking on them, or probably even me as a parent, I have a disability. Like personally, I have a bit of a visual challenge. Like one of my eyes has keratoconus. And of course, Krista used to feel so concerned because I used to squint a lot. So sometimes even when I forget to wear my glasses and then I'm looking at certain, she'll be like, where are your glasses? Let me pick them for you. And so sometimes that affects my child because they're like, will my mother go blind? And so it's important to also preempt those conversations and just discuss. Questions on life and God, I've said that we are raising an open generation and children are just curious. They're curious about religion. They're curious about sex. They're curious about online things that they keep on learning and hearing. And so just keep on checking in with them as well. And of course, online challenges and match off. I don't know whether you guys know about a guy. It was a child, I think in Githurai, who went into that don't breathe challenge. So they were doing a match of course, you'll record yourself, you'll take a video of yourself, like how much are you able to hold your breath? Was it called Blue Shark or Blue Whale? And then this child refused to breathe until he died. And it has happened globally. Like there's so many children who've died because of these online challenges and match-offs. Even the last man standing, where they will have a challenge in terms of mwenye hata lala mpaka kesho. And sometimes children stay up, especially right now when they come for holidays. They stay up at night. They are chatting with their friends and they're like, "We bado uko awake, we bado uko awake." And then when you give up, you bow out in the group. You're like, "Okay, guys, call it a day. Fallen soldier." And then the others will keep on going off until the person who will win. And there's a child who said, she was actually telling me she didn't sleep, I think, until the following day. Like she stayed awake for almost 60 hours just to win that challenge. And of course, children can really do crazy things when it's their peers at risk in terms of their reputation and them looking cool. And so how do we show up? We can show up in these 5 ways. Number 1 is bold parenting. And bold parenting means that I don't have to feel like I am perfect. Boldness has to do with courage. I keep on showing up. I'm like, I don't know this. I've never done this before. I don't understand it totally. We are digital immigrants. Our children are digital natives. And so they've been born into technology. For us, we are still learning. I still keep on learning, like even the things like TikTok, all those. Sometimes we learn from our children. And bold parenting is to be able to say, I don't know, but I'm still in charge. And then conscious parenting, for you to be conscious about what are your struggles, what are your inner filters, what are your childhood, probably even childhood insecurities, because sometimes we really project them on kids. We project our fears, we project our hearts, we project our heartbreaks, we project our unfulfilled dreams through our children. And conscious parenting means that I am conscious about how I show up. And when we shall be doing the parenting on track, that is one of the things that we look at in terms of you guys will get to do assessments. You will get to probably do some tests that you'll involve your children as well, so that you're also conscious about how your children are, much as you're conscious about how you are. And so conscious parenting is both ways. And then intentional parenting, in terms of I'm intentional. I plan my time intentionally to spend with my children. I plan how I show up intentionally. It's like the way I schedule my work and I plan for it, it's the same way I plan for parenting. I plan for moments. We plan for quality times. We agree which weekends we are blocking it for the kids. We agree that some of the things we've done in our family is that there's sometimes we don't accept engagements that don't accept our children, especially on Sunday. We just like, Sisi, we come as a package banner. You just have to accept us and accommodate us the way we are, especially if we need both of us to come. And so intentional parenting is being able to budget of time, to budget resources. Like for us, even just deciding every year, what do we want to do to support this child? So we outline each one of them. What will we do? So like our daughter right now, she's going for the chess tournaments. She'll be going to Kisii for the national chess tournaments on Sunday. And it's because we started being intentional. We're like, she'll never miss a trip. We will budget for it because it's something she's passionate about and we are seeing something beautiful in her. Last year, she won, it's not even last year. Yeah, she won last year, but she was awarded this year the Kids Global Awards in chess category. And then our son also loves toys. I remember like on Christmas-ish, we bought for him the monster truck. Hey, but that thing, we almost fullizzed because it was such an expensive toy, but it is exactly what he had been obsessing about. We were like, by the way, our son, we can really see, by the way, he loves cars. Right now he's 5. When he was 3, he could tell the brands of cars on the road. He's like, that is Mercedes, that is Toyota, that is Nissan. And we're like, what is this? And so every time we keep on sensing something, we invest in that thing. If they outgrow it, it's fine, but we're not going to leave it behind. And then, of course, God-centered parenting. And one of the things that has hit me and James as a reality, and probably we keep on repeating it in our parenting communities, is that except God raises our children with us, except God watches over the cities we are building for our children, all our labor is in vain. Except God watches over them, even if we stay up awake and we are paranoid and we're doing everything, it's also in vain. And I think just that God-centered parenting in terms of partnering with God to raise my children has become such a centered place. And one of the things that we don't fail to do is things like Bible study. I think like especially James doesn't struggle with consistency. And so like doing Bible studies, like we've looked for creative ways of visual Bible studies, things they can watch, we discuss, And it has been happening every day. I think James has been consistent. I'm knocking myself off because I've been inconsistent sometimes. Yeah, but he's really been inconsistent in terms of discipling them, in terms of exposing them to God, taking them for those VBSs. It will be inconvenient on your time, but are you willing to go all out to make sure that they are God-centered and God is the center of their lives? And of course, next week I've said we shall facilitate a session with James, and we shall be looking at how do you raise children in the 4 cities, 4 wicked cities. And so it will be a story of 4 cities and how can you parent even there. And we shall be looking at parents who have parented in wicked cities and what did they do, what was their win. Because this God-centered parenting is what one day our children will leave home and we will not have to worry about how many abortions they will do, about how many girls they'll get pregnant, about how they will get a mubaba out there, about how my son will get a sugar mommy out there and become a Ben 10. I will not have to worry about those things when my child is grounded, because the Bible says you raise a child in the way they should go, not the way you want them to go, not the way you probably will go. It is the way they should go, because there'll come a time when my child will make decisions for themselves and I will watch helplessly because there's nothing I can do about it. And that is why you're raising the children in the way they should go. And then the Bible says that they will never depart from it. And so what we are doing right now with our young ones, probably some of us are here, you're not even a mother of a preteen or a teen, and some of us are with preteens. It's such a good age because right now they're inquisitive and everything. Some of us are with teenagers, maybe feeling like they don't listen, but they need you. Keep on speaking, keep on speaking, keep on speaking life. Even if you're feeling like they are quiet, maybe an attitude that is really irritating you, just keep on speaking life. Keep on telling them, keep on advising them, keep on just speaking God to them, even if they feel like they're not interested in religious things. I mean, it's truth. It's truth. God is able to follow up whatever you say, even though you're not. And then, of course, all-rounded parenting, to parent our children in all ways. Parent them emotionally, parent them financially, parent them spiritually, parent them physically, parent them mentally, parent them socially. Like show up in all those places. Let them just see you, not just parenting them in terms of instructions and trying to fix the wrong things they do, but showing up in a way of, I want you to grow in all these areas. I want you to grow socially. I want you to grow spiritually. I want you to grow emotionally. I want you to grow financially. So I want you to have good financial habits, all-rounded parenting. And of course, that is the end of our session tonight. I will probably want to just get some feedback from you. When you think about these 5 places, what will be your priority? And then, like I've said, next week, we shall be here facilitating this session with James on bold parents in the 4 cities. That will be next Thursday. Next Thursday, we will start earlier. So we'll do 8 to 9 because it's a bit of a longer conversation. I mean, even today just ended up becoming long. It's 9:21. We still netted on 1 hour. You guys are so patient. And so when you think about showing up in 5 ways, is there anything that other parents can learn from you? Maybe there's something you do. This forum is not just about talking down on you and we're like, you're not doing it well. Some of you are amazing in how you're doing some of these things and we would love to learn from each other. We will also love to learn from you, me and James, because this is a community. And so probably you can just share on the chat, or you can unmute yourself and just share which place do you feel like you're doing so well and which place do you want to grow in. When is the right time for dedication and time to introduce a child to church? Yeah, there's someone who has asked this question. First of all, it depends. I mean, I've done something called ecumenical studies where we'll look at the disunity of churches, where churches can't agree. And of course, different churches have different cultures. So for example, there are churches that baptize children and like probably some churches do not. Like ours, you dedicate a child, you give thanks for a child, you don't even dedicate them. Hakuna kudedicate mtoi. Okay, una dedicate mtoi who baptiziwi. So probably I'm assuming probably the person asking this, because it's a direct message, they're thinking of the right time for dedication. So it depends. There are churches that have scheduled dedication in terms of they usually say like, this is the date, this is the time. And then there are churches that mtoto akizaliwa, they dedicate that one and they dedicate the other one. I think it's just checking in with your church. But in terms of when do I resume church, that is also personal preference in terms of introduce a child to the church. For us, by the time our children, when they get the first jab, the first jab, I mean, when they're 6 weeks, after that, sisi tunaendanga church. But it depends. There are parents who are probably more careful. They'll want to go back when children are 4 months or 3 months old. The only thing is to make sure you don't die away spiritually. Yeah, like how do you nurture yourselves? So Modoni has shared. I'm looking forward to hear. Please unmute yourself and talk if you want to. People who love talking like me, and then the rest of us can share. Probably you can share your take home, but the important thing is to just share also Where do you feel like you're doing well on this, and which place will you want to grow more? So Muthoni is saying super insightful. My key takeout is to keep at it godly parenting, no matter the outcome, and they will not depart from it when older. Amazing, amazing. That is how prodigal sons are able to come back home. I'll keep on sharing that vibe and that content with you. Probably it will go on for another 5 days. Prodigal sons come back home because the parents did a good job. In a way, they are convicted when they're out there that they are missing out on good vibes. They're missing out on the social part. They are missing out on the spiritual part. They are missing out on the financial part. Everything that the family they are attached to offers them. Yeah. Does anyone want to share before we play some music and pray? I can
Hi,
give one
Coach.
person. Gladys, you want to go?
I can say something. Yeah, my name is
Hi,
Gladys.
Gladys.
Hi, you can hear me?
I can see Gladys is talking, but I can't hear Gladys. Can you guys hear Gladys? Okay, let me stop sharing first.
Yes, I can.
Then I also stop recording next so that we can just feel free to